Hi guys and welcome, I'm Daniel and I'm helping you to become a better RPA developer. Now in this video, I would like to discuss about filtering data, and we're gonna have a source of information, a data table that we will transform to another data table with a different structure. And we're gonna do things like grouping, how we're gonna group here from this sort in the next one, how we're gonna do aggregate data, like concatenate a bunch of strings and obtain the sum. And actually, I'm gonna discuss about the language integrated query, which is a very powerful thing which you can use in the UiPath Studio. And like you have seen in the video, I'm gonna do this time two solutions, the beginner and an advanced. And doesn't matter if you're already a beginner or an advanced, I would say that this problem is quite difficult. So for instance, if you're a beginner and you're able to do this problem, I would say that you can easily consider yourself an advanced. So I don't want to waste your time. I'm gonna start first with beginner solution. And by the way, you have here some timestamps that you can seek to the solution that you are interested in. Now, let's go to read the problem and switch to UiPath Studio then. Now, as a first step, let's make the problem statement clear. So I'm gonna leave a link here, by the way, with the forum where you would like to read the entire problem. I'm not gonna do that because you can do it yourself, but there are a bunch of emojis here that it can make the reading difficult. Now I'm gonna start with what's requested. So you have as an input this data CSV file, which has a TXT extension, but inside is a CSV also. And as an output, you're asked to create another CSV file, which is named result beginner. Now this one, it should have three columns. The first one, it should be the region code. The second one, it should be a column name, which is named task. The second one, it's sum. Now I have here open this CSV file, and let's make a check how this CSV file should look like. So we need to make a grouping for each region code. So here we have two region codes for A, and we need to merge these two and to obtain one single row, which the first column should be A. The second value should be this string plus these two strings, because this is the corresponding value related to task. And the third column value, it should be this number plus this number. So in total, because we have three values distinct, A, B, C, we should have three rows here. Now with this established, let's switch to UiPath Studio and see how we're gonna create this solution. I have this empty project, which is Advent Challenge number 7, where inside I have a folder named data, and I have placed this data CSV file. So I'm planning to make the solution for beginner here in this workflow. So the first step should be to read the data. Now we do have already some CSV files. So we do have CSV activities, read CSV. As a file, you need to specify this data, but because this is a CSV, they are expecting to browse a CSV. I'm gonna show you a trick. You can put wildcard.wildcard, press enter, and then double click. Now you can manually write this value if you want to do that, but in this case, I just want to keep the original state. So this text should be written in a data table. Now let's create this data table and let's name it input data table. It makes sense. And something which I need to check, by default, CSV has a delimiter which is comma. Now this one has a comma and a tag. So we need to change this delimiter to a semicolon, and I think we should be ready to go. It has a headers. So the first one is header. So now we have the data column read. So now we should be ready to go to the second step where we create that table. So this is the first table, which is the source of information. Now we need the second table, which should be the destination. How we're gonna create a data table? Where you have guessed, we're gonna use build data table. So build data table, I'm just gonna fast forward because there's no point to lose the time here. So what we are interested, I'm gonna create a data table with three values, and all of them I'm gonna keep as a string. And I'll delete this row which is added manually. So hit OK. And the result I'm gonna put in a variable which is target data table or result, and great. So now we need to go to the second part, which is the hardest. How we gonna filter, how we make this transformation from the source to the target. Now there is no easy task for that, so there is no activity adds that custom, and because of that I'm going to use an invoke code. I'm going to use invoke code, and here as a programming language I'm going to switch here from VB to C#. I really think it's much easier to learn C#. And first I would like to define the arguments. Now I'm going to write here something which is named language integrated query, and I'm going to leave a link here in the description if you want to read more. But first let's define the argument. So what should be the argument? Well, I'm going to create an argument which is named source dt. Let's keep the thing simple, and the value of this one should be input data table, and another one should be target dt, and the result it should be in the target data table. These are not strings, are data tables, and you're gonna see just in a moment why I have added both of them. What I would like to do is to create some subsets to be able to make this grouping. For these two rows I would like to have a collection. For these two I would like to have a collection, and this is named grouping, and I'm gonna group by this column name which is region code. So let's see how we can do that. So the first step, I'm gonna use a query, and let me find the query equal from row in source data table dot as enumerable. I'm gonna make this conversion, so the data table I would like to be converted to a collection of data rows, because language integrated query is only work with collections. It doesn't work naturally with the data tables. So I have here an enumerable. I'm just gonna put some empty spaces, and what should be the first step? I like to make a grouping. So how do I make a group? I'm just saying group by, and I just spelled group by. I like to group by row dot field, and here I'm just gonna open a parenthesis. What's the name of the field which I like to have? So the type, it should be string. Now the field is given by the column which is named region code. So this is the column which I'm making the grouping, and I'm specifying this as a text, and this I would like to put into a G. Let's say G is the subset which I like to create here, this one. Then group by, actually I need to put a space here, and I like to select a new. This is called anonymous types. So I'm selecting a new type, which as a first value, I'm gonna say region code equal with, so here I like to say this A or B or C. Now every time when you create a group, it has two properties. It's the collection itself, which each item in the collection is, can you guess? It's a data row, because I'm grouping a data row. Now I'm grouping data row, but I'm grouping from using a column which is named region code. So I hope it was clear. Now the key when you make the grouping, you can obtain using group, which is the group one, dot key. The next element is I would like to have the total values of these columns. Now again, G, it's a collection, so I cannot say something like G get field, because I need to say from an item from that collection. Now how do I transform each item to a collection? I'm going to use the method which is called select. So select, it's receiving a function, and if you want to tell more about the function and make separate videos about this called lambda arguments, drop me a comment and hit the like button. I'm gonna make videos on the channel. So select from the collection G, which is by the way this subset, I like to select just the value from the column which is named task. So how do I do that? Li, variable type Li, is a data row. So every method that which is applied to data row, it will work here. How do I know that I have this variable which is named field? Well, you can find here in the data row and search MSDN. And this one is the data row class. And if you go here in the methods, now not all the methods here are listed. So I'm gonna go see the methods and you search field. There is a method, it's called extension method. Now this one is a bit too complicated for this tutorial, but for the simplicity you can receive that it's receiving a data row and it takes as a string. So provide strongly typed access to each of the column values in the specified row. Strongly typed access, it means that it makes the conversion directly. If I would like to get a string, it gave me a string. If I would like to ask an integer, it will give me an integer. But keep in mind that there are some limits here. It cannot make conversion just implicitly. So leave that field. I like to get the string from the column, and let's go here to this data table from the column which is named task. So this one, I'm gonna close the parentheses for field. I'm gonna close another one for select. And now I have a collection of text. So exactly this and this. I have two elements here. Now, how do I convert this to a single string? Because I need to convert this one from a single string, and using this comma, actually it has a space. Well, I will use string.join. So here I'm gonna say tasks equal, I'm gonna leave a space here, string.join, open a parenthesis. The first one is the separator, which it should be comma, hit a space, and I'm closing the comma as a string. Make another comma for the second parameter and close another comma and another comma for this string.join. Now, it may a bit look differently, but if you want to go in detail with any of these which I have written, just tell me, write in the comments, and I'm gonna make a separate video about that. So these are the tasks, and now I need to create the same thing for sum. So I'll say something sum equal. Well, I'm not gonna use string.join because I like to add the numbers and not to convert to a string. So keep in mind that every time when you need to do number operation, you need to convert to an integer or float or what's the corresponding data type. Now in this part, we're probably dealing with a decimal or a float. Well, how to make this conversion? Well, I'm gonna use the same subset, which is named G, and I'll take the select, write li from list element, by the way, use this strange syntax, and then say li.field, open a parenthesis, and now I can go directly. Let's say I would like to ask a float. I'm not sure if this conversion will succeed, but let's see that in a moment. I'll try to ask a float, and the column responding for this float, it is name effort. I'm just copy, hit a paste. So this is a collection of numbers now. Now, how do I add all this? Well, I'm gonna put a dot just after and hit sum. And this is my query. I'm just gonna close the parentheses. And then what's so great about this, and actually that's a limitation, I cannot go outside with this new, it's called anonymous object. This anonymous, which has three properties, I'm just gonna show you just in a moment how you're gonna use it. I cannot go outside of this. So if I'm gonna say a for each, I need to say it here and not outside. Now I can do, however, expose some information here, but because I would like to keep the thing simple, let's say that I cannot do that. So let's make this conversion for each var, it's the same thing with dim, var item from in query. What I need to do, I have all the items here. Now, if I'm going here, the item dot, I have all the three columns which I'm interested in. So here, after I have the three values, I'm interested to add a row inside the second build table, which I have passed as an argument. And I have the source and I have the target. So let's say target dt.rows.add. And if you know that there is actually an activity which adds a data row to a data table, there's two possibilities how you can add a data row. Using a data row, there is a separate property, and using an input array. You need to specify an array there. Now, guess what? the add function, it has two overloads. The first one, it's this input array. And the second one, if I go here with the up, I do have the data row. Now I'm interested to call this one. So I'm gonna create a new object. This should be the array. And keep in mind that I'm looking to create 3 columns. I have this in the target DT 3 columns, and I need to respect the order. So the first column which I have created was the region code. So new array of type object. The first value is the region code, which is given by the item.region code. I need to specify the second one, which is the tasks. So item.tasks. The third one is item.sum. And I need to add a semicolon after this instruction. Now I do have here an error. This is because the syntax is actually not like that. I need to specify group row by this row field string with region code. So I'm gonna press OK. And hopefully I'm not gonna have any error message here. And in this time I didn't. So I read, I build, I'm making the filtering, and I would like to maybe write the data table. So let's say write CSV. And it's asked to write in a file which is named, let's go back here, result.beginner. And the path I need to say to this result beginner, and I need to write from the target data table. Include headers, and let's give a try. Now before to give a try, I'm gonna show you a secret that it will work 100%. So let's debug. Actually, let's run a file first. It should crash if I did something by mistake. So yes, it crashed, and the detail I'm gonna have a look here is just in the right. So invalid cast is not valid. So every time when you see an invalid cast exception, it means certain cast it doesn't work, sometimes conversion. The only conversion which we're doing here is we're trying to convert to a float. Now I'm gonna probably guess that this one is a decimal or a string, but because I don't care, I'm just gonna go with OK. I'll go edit code, and I'm gonna show you a trick how you can convert this effort to a string. So instead of asking directly to float, I'm gonna ask to object. And object, you can put anything. You can put a single, you can put a float, you can put a text, whatever. I'm really not interested. What I'm interested, I would like to obtain at the end a float. So how do I do a conversion between an object and a float? Well, using the convert class. So convert dot to single, and as you can see, there are 18 methods to convert a single. This one, it's a object, it's a string. I'm really not interested in which one it's called. And I have open a parenthesis and I need to close, but I need to close just after this field. So this is the way how you convert to single. Now, if I'm gonna run again, I don't have any error, so I can run the program. The program successfully worked. Let's go here in the project. I'm gonna hit a refresh, open the result beginner, and I'm just gonna drag and drop from the other screen. Okay, and I'll try to make a comparison to see if the data is correct. Okay, so the first one is A, which is remove fence, clean chimney. The sum is 722, so it's exactly what we're interested in. It has 3 rows, and the order is kept just in the file. So this one is the first group. I have created this in a single row. This one is the second one, and this one is the third one. Now this is the shortest solution that you can ever found here at the moment of this recording. Look how simple it is. It's really not that hard. The only difficult thing here is this invoke code, which you can keep Visual Basic if you like, but I really think that C# it's way easier. Now with this having said, let's go to the next one, which is advanced. So let's read the next one, which is the Advent Challenge Advanced part. We're gonna have an input the same file, and I made a comparison between these and it's the same, so we're gonna use the same source of information. As an output, again, a CSV file, and the condition, it will be a bit different. The first row, we need to have the done, we need to delete these, but as a sorting, we need to change a bit the order. And as you can see, the table, the result should have the same columns. We don't do any projection like we do here. So we're gonna have the same amount of columns from the source and in the destination, but we need to use two criteria for sorting. The first one is based on status, and we need to respect the order, news to be on top, and work in progress should be just after, so something like that, new, work in progress, and paused. Now I'm gonna let this one at the end. I'm not sure if that's the correct thing. I'm gonna make an assumption that the news should be first, work in progress, and then paused. And the second one should be related to the start date. Now I would like to make a thing that the second criteria will be only used when two items, they have the same status. This is how sorting works. And actually, let me show you here. I'm gonna have here this data table, and based on this new value, when these are the same, then I'm gonna consider to read the next column. And as you can see, this start date, it's a bit strange written. I'm just gonna talk in a moment. Now with this having established, let's see how we can do that in UiPath Studio. And because I'm lazy, I will just use this beginner as a source for advanced. So I'm just gonna copy and hit a paste, and I'll hit this as a main and give a rename advanced. And the reading, I'm just gonna keep. I still need to build a new data table, so this one should be kept also. The only thing I will need to change is here in the invoke code. Now let's change this. So I need to add this data table to correspond with the source one. And because we have done that, I'm just gonna fast forward to see all of these new columns. How do I add? Again, I have used strings for all the data types. I'm not interested to make any conversion, and actually I'm gonna do that, but in the invoke code. So hit OK. Now the first step is to delete, to filter out the one which have the status done. So for this, I'm gonna use an activity which is named filter data table. In the filter wizard, I will keep, so I'm just gonna do my selection based on the column which is named status. The operation should be equal and the value should be done. Now I would like to remove these rows. In an input, I'll say input data table. And as an output, I'm just gonna keep the same one. So I'll just use input data table. Hit OK. So here I'm gonna filter, I need to build. Then let's have a look here to the invoke code. That's the interesting part. Now, other thing, I will need to do this rename. And let's open edit code. So we don't need any more grouping. So this part I will just delete. And I have this row from source data table. So we just need to do some sorting. Now, ordering, you're gonna do using an order by keyword. So you're gonna use order by row. And how do you get the column name that you like to order? Now, I need to use field, open as a parenthesis string. The column name should be status. And that's the first sorting. Now please consider that this one is sorted alphabetically, so it doesn't respect this type of sorting which is specified here. But I'm gonna tell you after, because if I'm gonna tell you the entire query, it will be way difficult to understand. So keep that in mind. Now let's consider the second criteria, which is start date. So how are we gonna do the start date? Now ideally, the way how you specify multiple orders are order by row.field open. I'm gonna convert to a date time. I'm gonna say start date. Now this, it will work, this conversion, and it can work to convert from a text to a row. But do you remember that these dates, they were written in a special form? So I'm just gonna put here on the screen. And as you can see, we don't have any format universal. This one is the US format. That's the German or the Romanian one. And here the date is in the middle. Here the date is at the end. Now, this one, it will crash. If you're gonna use this field datetime, it will crash, and that's perfectly normal. Guys, this is a mistake which I have seen a lot of programmers they are doing. And if you want to learn and tell you how you can use datetime correctly, please drop me a comment, because I have seen this problem a lot and very frequently. So going back to our problem, we somehow need to make explicitly this conversion. That's because that's a problem with the source of data. Keep in mind, this is a bug. And what we're doing here, if you want to write a robot which it's able to write this type of code, first of all, I would never ever use this in production, because this is a hack. Now, it's perfectly normal to have a hack in production, but you don't fix the problem. You basically make an adoption, or you're making an assumption that something is related to your guess. Now, my point here, it's not necessary to avoid this type of code to write, but instead resolve the problem at the source. At the source, it's who wrote this date. So that should be the problem first. Now, because this is a challenge, I'm gonna try to resolve it accordingly. So ideally, this will work, but it will not work because we don't have something uniquely. So I'm just gonna need to use a string, and I need to do the conversion manually. How do I do that? Well, I need to use a function or a delegate. I'm just gonna explain in a moment. Here I'm gonna keep as a string, and I'm somehow need to make my hack code to be able to convert to a datetime, but explicitly. So my point here is I need to define something which is a func. This func, it will receive a string, and it will return a datetime, and it will be named something like hack datetime convert, or let's say hack datetime convert. And trust me, that's a hack, that's not a fix. So the first parameter, it will be text. I'm gonna use this strange syntax. And if you want to tell you why this syntax is the same, drop me a comment here. Maybe I'm gonna do another video. So let's have a look again to our problem. I need to use the US conversion if I can see a slash, or I need to use the German or Romanian if I use a dot, if I see a dot in the date. Now, I'm gonna make an assumption that I will use the English when I will encounter any slash in the value. So if the text, how do I check if the text contains a slash? Well, I need to use the contains. Contains, I'll put a parenthesis, hit a slash, and then I'm gonna just convert the date like I would do, datetime.parse from text. And now I need to tell to the robot that I would like this date to be explicitly using English culture. And I'm not gonna go deep how these are working. If you want to describe all the datetime formats and how you build a robot that can scale in multiple countries, and actually to avoid this type of problem, hit me a comment. I'm gonna try to build in the next video. So that will be a text, and then I'll use something new, system, globalization, culture info, and that's in English. Otherwise, and I need to return, and otherwise I'm gonna return something which is in Romania. Well, again, if you want to tell you more details about that, hit me a comment. So for this, I think we are done. Now, in the order, I don't want to order by the text datetime. I would like to order by the converted datetime, because that's the way how you make comparison. In order to make a sorting, you make compare between this date and the other one. So I'm gonna call my function here. And now, what I would like to write, how to select, well, ideally, because I don't want to make any projection, I don't want to change the data type of the columns, I don't want to make anything else. I just like to keep the source of the data table exactly. So I'm gonna select row, but this will give me invalid because I cannot add a row in two data tables. So instead, I'm gonna use row.item rows or item array. Go for each item in the query, and now I need to add the item. Now the add function has two overloads. The first one, it's taking this object, which is exactly the one which I'm calling, and the other one is taking a data row. And if you remember how you add a row in a data table using the add data row activity, there are two options: using a data row specifically or using this value, which is exactly what I'm using here. So using this, I think I have fixed the day and time sorting. I'm gonna hit OK. Now let's check if I do have any error here. I don't have. And because I want to be lucky, I'm gonna hit save, run, and yes, it works. So go here in the output and hit refresh. And I have here the B and C. And let's check the data set here. So the A's are removed because they have the status done. If I'm having a look here to the mu, this is 21 December, this is 33 December, and it's perfectly normal to have the other way around. Now, as you can see, in the Excel are the other way around. So the sorting works. Now, why do I have this text invalid? Is because I'm just keeping the arrays from the original text. So it's caused by here. Because I'm selecting the item array, I'm just pasting the same values here. So that's why it doesn't work. Now I could do, and I could specify in the data table here this string, instead of using a string, using a data table, but that would involve to add select new array, and I need to specify these values explicitly. And to be honest, I would not write this type of code in the production. I would be explicitly with each value which I'm adding. And I would say select new, and I'll add these columns the same values. Now, I'm not gonna perform this change because it's not requested, but hit me a comment if you want to go in detail with that. Now, there is one single problem which I said to be fixed, to respect the order. And if you're going to the original request, we need to have the first new, work in progress, and paused. So now we are sorting alphabetically. So how do I do that? Well, I'm gonna show you just in a moment. Let's go back here to our invoke code. In order to make conversions from a text to a number, and actually that's a custom logic for ourselves, I'll use the same trick which I have used here with a func. Can you guess what I would write here? Well, let me show you. So I would like to use a func from a string to an integer. And this time, because it's not a hack, I'm not gonna write related to hack. So let's say order ID should be retrieving a text. And what do I need to write here? Well, I'm gonna use a switch. So switch text and say something case. The first one, it's new. And in case of the new, I'm gonna return 1. In case of the, which one was the first one? The WYP. So WYP, I'm gonna return 2. And in case of pause, I will return 3. Now I would like to make a default to return 4 for any other value. So I'm gonna put just a below. With this order ID func, like because it's a function, I'm gonna use copy. And the order, I'll not do it based on the status, but instead of using this function ID. Now, before to give a run, I'd like to tell you another thing. I have made a mistake on purpose just to make the things a bit more visible. Basically, if you're just using the way how I said here, you order by here, and then you're making another order by the last one. So the last order, it will always have a priority. And if you're just doing the way how I did here, it will make the first ordering. Let's say you're gonna put the ordering, and then you're gonna cancel the previous ordering and you make a new one. So the last one, it will always have a priority. So if you want to avoid that, I made this on purpose. You can delete this, and I'm gonna put a comma here just after the order. I'm gonna make this a bit larger to see. So first I'm interested to order by the status, actually the value here, and then by the date. So hit OK, and let's give a run. Okay, so the execution finished. Have a look to the result advanced, and we are pretty happy with the result. The first one, it's new. Now we do have 21 December, after it's 23 December, and the reason this one has a different value I told you previously. Great, so this is the advanced challenge number 7. Guys, that's the advanced challenge number 7. And I would love to see a reaction from you, at least with one important thing which you have taken from this video and you are gonna apply here in the next robots. Also, if you do have any other question or you give me suggestion, drop me a comment here in the YouTube section. Also, hit that like button, it really motivates me to continue to make this video and to be valuable for you. Now, that's all for today, see you in the next video. Goodbye!